Yeah, but we can, I mean, officially start. So Chuck is one of my good friends, and Chuck, you know Jerry pretty well, and coordinated all of this. So really, the whole point of this is to Jerry get your ASEA story and how redox signaling molecules in a supplement form has benefited you. I think actually, Chuck, we can bring up his background first as well, kind of where Jerry has come from, and then Jerry, if you can just give your ASEA story, and I'll do a disclaimer really quick. So this supplement, this product, is we're not treating or curing any kind of staining for any kind of medical condition. So we're just empowering our body with something that it already creates, and so when we do that, then the body can perform wonders for us. So Chuck, if you can do a little intro, that'd be great.
Sure. So Jerry White, a good friend, also was the founder of the Shriners Research Center, operated it, and so also taught biomechanics in the university. Also was a super high level coach during the universities where he actually trained swimmers to go and compete as Olympians. And so through all that, he learned everything about the human body, and whether it was athletic or just physical. Then he got introduced to Redox much later in life. And Jerry, I'll let you take over at that point and tell us your story.
Okay, well, I never was always this good looking. You know what? This stuff really worked. When we got introduced to this material, it was kind of interesting. I was working as a physical therapist. I was running a full clinical load, and had some specialties in amputees and phantom limb pain and a bunch of crazy stuff, and some of the kids with burns at the Shriners Hospital. Then established for them the Human Performance and Gait Analysis Lab. Spent 20 hours in the lab a week. I was teaching as an adjunct professor of biomechanics, physiology, and neuroanatomy for the incoming physical therapy students, and for some re-education of orthopedic surgeons who wanted to volunteer to work with the kids at the Shrine. And my gig was to go over the developmental nervous system. How does it develop? How do we monitor it? What happens when it gets damaged during the birth or otherwise in the development of the embryo, and then the kids when they're young, and give them a perspective. It was different than the adults they'd been working on for their careers. Needless to say, with those things and coaching, and my wife and I still compete in triathlons. She was, when we first got introduced to this, I was doing triathlons consistently, but she was doing them with, an interest. She was very good, world-class sort of swimmer, at least nationally ranked when she was a kid. And so she thought, well, this triathlon, I can do the first part pretty well. Did that, got on the bikes, and for the little short triathlon, she was struggling to try to run, what, if you could call it that. She had a lot of lung damage as a baby. When she was a year and a half old, she got pneumonia and a lot of scarring in her lungs. And so, she would just lock up and couldn't breathe on the run. So maybe a couple blocks she could run or jog, and then had to walk. That was where we started. And that was when she was about 52 years old.
Okay.
When we started applying, well, at first, I was working on many other things. But I did have a need for time. My oldest son came to me with tears in his eyes, and he said, "Dad, how is it you can go down to that hospital and play with everybody else's kids, and if you ever come home, there's no time for us?" So it was like just a slug in the chest. What am I going to do? There was a lot of years that went together to get to the point I was, and I wasn't going to make any more money, and I was doing it out of duty. Money wasn't a big driver for me, but it was for my wife because we didn't have enough, and she was working 3 jobs at the time, and but I was tenaciously hanging on to another work that I was doing, and it was sort of there was a hole in the bucket. It was draining out, and I was going to go down with the doggone ship. So I get a call from a housewife that was one of my people in the other company that I was working with, and she and a friend that I knew very well had gone down to this company in Utah, and they called me up and they said, "Holy crickets, we just sat through something that makes our little housewife brains go nuts, but can it be even possible?" I started using it was when I was swimming consistent. I have been for 52 years or something at that time. And I knew how long it took me to do 100 yards. And if I did 10 of them, I knew how long that was going to take. And I knew how fast I could go, which was much slower than I used to. And my heart rate, it took my heart rate. So I started to drink this stuff intermittently, and it was astounding. My heart rate went down 10 beats a minute, but I increased my speed by 4 seconds, which was a big deal after that many years. I'm going, what on earth? But I didn't pay too much attention to it because I have to ask my wife. So before I got involved with something, I was just big old chicken. I was fascinated with it. I was hiding it in my closet. And one day, my daughter got sick, and she got really, really, really sick. She was going off to college. We'd have to drive there. It was over 1,000 miles to drive, had a family reunion on the way. She had 3 different illnesses all at once. She couldn't even lift her head off the pillow, and sometimes it was hard for her to even open her eyes. But it was 3 or 4 days until we got into the car. And my wife had known Denny, the one who introduced us before, it's because Denny was somebody that we built in another corporate. I mean, she was one of my key leaders. She left and started with this new company. And Marcia said, "What's that?" She says, "You got this stuff in your closet," which I didn't know she knew. But did you know that wives know everything? And she said, "Quit dragging your feet. Try it on Katie and let's see what happens." Lo and behold, we just had Katie just swishing around, drinking a little bit of it, a couple of times. And within a matter of hours, she started lifting her head. She could sit up. It's crazy. By next morning, she started walking around a little bit. I thought, this is nuts. One of those conditions typically lasts for more than 6 months.
Wow. How long was she in bed for before you guys?
A couple of weeks.
Okay. Wow.
And I mean, she was a vibrant college or freshman to be.
Yeah.
At 4, and then she was just like mimicking a sack of potatoes and wasn't going anywhere on the couch. And so we all got excited the next morning because she went out to get the mail, and it was like the end of their first marathon. We had family lined up on one side of the sidewalk, and on the other side, go, go, go. So she would get all the way out to the mailbox and all the way back. Well, 24 hours later, it was almost as if she had never been sick.
Wow.
Went around to the goodbye parties that the school was putting on. It was just astounding. So we loaded up, put everything in the car, took up to the family reunion up in the high Sierras in California. And we thought that's a bloody miracle. It was just the beginning of it. And she said, "Well, I don't need to take this stuff anymore." 24 hours later, said, "Well, maybe we better get that on board," put it back. And she kind of perked right back up and went off and had a magnificent college career and exceptional grades and a lot of leadership and a great mom today. So my wife kind of turned to me and looked at me and said, "Could you learn to make a decision?" And so we decided to jump into this, but I had been really holding on to my previous efforts because I'd promised a lot of people a lot of stuff, and I was really trying to support them in what we did before. I didn't want anybody to feel like I was bailing on them. But my boat was leaking so much that, you know, we had to, can I have another bean? No, that's saved for tomorrow. You know, it was horrible. And we were in debt. We had a bunch of credit cards. We had to try to sell our house. We were going to try to downside because our last kid was going to school. We had to pull everybody out of school that we were paying for. We had like $30,000 that we had to do to fix up the house to sell it for $40,000 less than it was worth. And we were really in bad shape. Marcia was doing that she was doing for three different jobs, and I was go over here doing all the stuff I was doing, so we never even saw each other. So I'll just finish off by telling you, when I finally got an inkling of what this technology could do, where it would remind the human system of how it used to work when you were young. When you figure this out and you watch it happen, it's going to flip your shoes off and floss between your toes. You're going to be amazed at the ultimate results that can happen when the human system can get a hold of what's actually happening around it and adapt to a changing world. So hopefully it's intriguing enough with our story. Well, I guess I better tell you the other part of my wife's story about the triathlons. Because at 65 years old, she completed her first 140-mile Ironman, and then started doing the half Ironmans. Had 3 flat tires on the first one, was an hour and a half trying to get the flat tires to be fixed, but finished. The second one, she climbed up into the top 50%. The third one, she qualified for the World Championships, went off to the World Championships and was in the top 25 in the world for somebody who just 12 years early, about 11 years earlier, she couldn't run 2 blocks.
Yeah.
A whole change in all of that.
So did she notice a difference? Because you were mentioning earlier her lungs when she was born. You know, there was some.
Oh, absolutely. She would lock up. She would throw her head back. The veins would stick out in her neck. They'd get really red. She'd start whistling. You could listen to her around the block. Wow. Because her lungs were just so locked up. But once we started doing this, she went from having multiple weeks during the year where she had lung infections of various kinds, and they just began to eventually stop. And then by the time she gets to the point where she can complete a full, think about it, 2.5-mile open water swim, 112-mile bike race, and then jump off and do a marathon at the end of it at 65 years old, when at 53 she couldn't get half a mile.
Yeah.
So all of that happened, but the other thing that was really strange about it is all the cells are involved with this. One time she tried to use a spray bottle with the spray, and we knew it was completely safe because your cells make it, and if you didn't make it, you'd never survive conception. You'd be dead as fried chicken in 3 minutes. Nothing could survive, no plant, no animal, nothing that's made of cells. So we add it back, can't hurt you. So she was spraying it in her eyes, thought, wow, this worked out pretty good. And she came in about 2 or 3 weeks later and she's going, I can't see anything. I think my eyes are getting really bad. Maybe it was 3 months. So she went in and got her eyes checked. They said, put your glasses on, try to read this chart. Might as well have been sighted. She couldn't even hardly get to the second row. I go, boys, yeah, we better check this out. So take your glasses off, try again. She's like 4 lines lower. She's reading it. They go, yeah, your problem is you're vastly overcorrected. So when she was 16 years old, she couldn't pass the driver's test without her glasses. When she was 62, she could pass the driver's test without her glasses. So if you're remaking your cells like they were when you were young, you're making all your cells like they were when they were young. You could be, well, I mean, look at here, Chuck. Chuck was the nastiest looking soul I ever saw before I ever got started on this. And look at how cute he is today.
I do have a thought I'd like to add. So, Jerry, we talked many times, and he taught me so much, and I love his fearless commitment. his true passion for this. And I was frustrated as a field operator that people couldn't understand what Redox was. And like he said earlier, they don't believe anything anybody says. 99% of people have tried a bunch of stuff and it didn't work. And, most people won't stick with something 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to find a result. Because even at that point, most people fail with whatever they're using. So I was doing the 3 times in 5 minutes, and I was doing the shoulder application or the back of the neck application. And I was frustrated with how great this technology is. And yet we didn't have a really fast demo to capture people's minds that they would pay attention to. And so I was praying. I was actually very angry at God. How could you introduce something to us and give it back to us? Because we produce it and you gave it back to us. Now it's outside the human body, produced and patented. How can we demo this and get basically an instant result? And I said, it's a signaling molecule. And that's when it just hit me. Why would I put it on my foot if my brain is where the signal starts? So I put some on the top of my head thinking, will it go through my skull? And obviously it didn't do that. And then I thought about all the conversations I've had with the neuro docs and the spine doctors I work with, and it just hit me. One of them said something about the carotid arteries is the freeway to your heart and your brain. So that's when I said, what would I do if I put it here? And my shoulder quit hurting. That I'd injured playing golf. I'd hit a root, and my shoulder bothered me for years, and all of a sudden it quit. So I immediately said, boy, the next person that comes in my showroom, because I'm in a mattress store right here, sitting, and I said, the first person that comes in here, I'm going to attack them with this gel. And so, I don't know, whatever the timeline was, the guy and his wife walked in the door, and I said, today's your good day. I'm going to dramatically change the way you feel. And his comment to me was, you can't help me. I'm dealing with some really bad cells in my body, and they don't give me much time. And so, at that moment, I didn't really know what to say about that, but I did ask him, because he wasn't 18 years old. I said, so what did you used to do? And he said, well, how you know I'm not doing it still? And I said, I'm just taking a guess. He said, well, I was an emergency ambulance driver, and I would obviously help the people. And I said, so your back hurts? And I said, how about doing this? How about putting some of this, and I'm already putting it on my neck, and see if it makes you feel better. And so he did. He put it on his neck, and we walked about 6 feet. He stopped and he said, is this supposed to work fast? I said, I don't know, you tell me. He says, I feel dramatically better. So that's when I knew on a different person how fast it would work. And so I called up and started talking to the different ones. And actually I called Terry Latham pretty soon in, and I said, hey man, you got to try this demo. And he says, nah, man, he said, I'm going to stick with the company protocol. And I said, well, just test it. So he had about 20 people in a meeting soon, and they did up. He just thought that, we would do the demo, and all these people started responding. So after the meeting, he called me up and he says, man, this is crazy. People jumping up and down and walking and bending and flexing and everything different when they did that application. And he said, all we did was the Tyndall swipe. That's where the name came from. And I told him,
it's not a Charmin commercial. It's actually something on your neck.
And so I said, I don't want to, go with that. And he said, well, you need to. So anyway, the rest is history. A lot of people have found instant success when the product is applied to the carotid arteries, freeway to the brain. So it messages to your finger, your knee, your foot, whatever. Yeah. if you do it 3 times on your neck each side, then you're going to really get that signaling in your body quickly.
Amazing. Well, thank you both. I think we'll call it at that. So thank you, Jerry, for sharing your story, and Chuck as well for you.